Hello, Professor, and welcome to my final project in financial modeling course. In this project, I chose to create a dynamic, using Visual Basic Code, a dynamic file that will help me to manage all my internship and job application. As an MBA student, I've been applying for more than 50 or 60 different applications for a summer internship, and it's a pretty daunting task. I think that every MBA will agree with me to keep track of all the different application and keep status of those application, whether you received an email or you have an interview and dates and the deadlines and stuff like that. And you also want to see some kind of a progress. And visualizing that is always a good way to keep track of things and also help you to understand what you need to do differently. So I created this file. It was a lot of tasks, a lot of work, but I'm very happy about that. And it's only the beginning because I'm gonna add more to that or more features. And hopefully that will be something that me and my friends can use. So the first thing that I had to do was actually think about the process and understand how I want to manage the internship or the jobs applications database. So let's assume that I just applied to an internship online, and that's great. Now I want to keep a record of that. So I created a form here that I will have to input the initial information. So let's say that I applied for Apple. And from here, I can choose the industry, the type of industry. And the reason that I created an already list so I can choose from is to help me actually identify later on to classify what industries I'm interested at and to see which one I applied more. So Apple, let's say that there are consumer packages good, and the title gonna be product manager, and the date that I applied was June, let's say 20th, and the application deadline is gonna be June 1st. And the contact there is a person that hopefully I have a friend that works there, and he helped me. He introduced me. He told me more about the company. Let's say that name is Tal Horvitz, and I can put his email here so I can keep track of that. And I can also put sorry, this is gonna be his phone number. And I can also put the LinkedIn if I have a LinkedIn profile for him. So what I wanted to do, I want to click here, enter, and I created, as you can see, a Visual Basic macro that I later on edit, and I'll explain why, that actually take that data and transfer it into a different sheet that's called data table. And this is my database. This is the data set that I'm working with. And it was, as I said, I had to create a macro, but I had to edit it because the challenge was how to make sure that the data that copied to the table is actually coming to a new line and not overriding existing lines, because obviously I want to keep track of all the data. So I had to do some research and I solved that. And as you can see, this is the last entry, product manager in Apple. And here I also did some kind of a conditions to see yellow represent that the deadline application is within a week. Green, it means that it's in the next month, and red means that it's already passed. And here I can also see other type of information that I later on will update on this specific record, such as the response status, times of interviews, and if I received an offer. So for this specific data, I decided to create a list also so I can keep track of certain events and measure how I'm succeeding with those applications. For example, the response, I put 4 different types of response: nothing yet, positive, email, phone call, or rejections. And for the status, I have telephone, 4 stages of face-to-face interview, and interview declined. And of course, I have yes or no for the offer. That will help me later on to analyze the process. So going back to our manager worksheet, you can see that I created 3 different clocks. And those clocks are actually helping me to understand where I am in the process. So right now I can see I have 60% offers, which mean yes, and then 40% of no. From the response, I have three types of response: no response, positive, and rejection. Right now, from all the internships that are in the data, I have 33% that I didn't receive any communication, 50% that I received positive, and 70% that I rejected. And the status, as you can see, that I was rejected. And the status, as you can see, 60% that I'm interviewing right now in the process. It can be first, second, or third, or fourth interview, telephone, and decline 20%. So the next thing that I wanted to do is retrieve the data. Let's say that I want to update the status of some kind of one of the internships. So instead of going through the table, which can be a really big table, it can be 20 lines and can be a couple of positions for the same company, I created a special retrieve function. So here you have a list of all the companies that I applied to, and you can see it shows only the list. And it doesn't matter if this is something that I need to work on, but you can see that there is twice Apple. But if you choose Apple, for example, the second list will automatically filter to the specific positions underneath that company. And that was another challenge when building the file, because I had to create with the formulas, I had to sort the table in a different place and arrange that and retrieve the informational data, the necessary data on that role. So let's choose, for example, product manager. And if I'm going to press here, retrieve, the information is going to appear here in the line next to it. So now you can see that the file has been updated. I can see the entry that I entered, and I can see all the dates and all the data that I entered. And let's go on and update specific that record. So the update is going to be through that table, but later on I'm going to try to add features to update through the main worksheet. Let's say that I received a positive phone call and that I'm in the third face-to-face interview. And let's say that I received a no at the end. So if you remember the clocks, I had 60% yes offers. Now I should have 50% yes offers because I have another no adding to that. So if you go back to the worksheet, automatically you can see everything here is updated, very dynamic, very colorful. It's really easy to follow and see where I am in the process and keep track of how well I'm doing. The other exciting thing that I did in this specific file is to create excuse me, to retrieve data from the internet. So I found a lot of useful information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, specifically about New York State, about wages, average wages, hourly and annually for different occupations. So if you can see here, this is the data that retrieved from the internet. You had the code, you had the occupations, and here you have the statistics. And I created another sheet with a pivot table that already filter all the occupations specific for those who are business, because this is the main sector that I'm looking for. So by pushing on the refresh button, which I created a macro for that also, this is going to refresh, it's going to go to the internet, it's going to retrieve all the information, and we'll show it in the graph so I can follow after what's going on in the financial sector in terms of wages and hourly and annually, so I can get a better insight of where should I focus when I'm looking for a job. So let's do the refresh. So as you can see, the file has been refreshed. Now I have all the occupations that are specifically good for finance. And this can give me another insight to keep in mind while I'm working. So here you have all the other sheets that I'm working with, including the pivot. And here is the codes for the Visual Basic that I created and also edit. This is a work in progress. I really enjoy doing this. I hope that my friends could benefit from this as much as I am. And thank you very much for a very interesting course and a great semester.